Hello, my name is Sawyer. I felt that this year I wanted to do a more difficult project than I did in my previous 2 years. My project is called Algae Go Kabloom. The problem I wanted to solve with the project is, does the type of herbicide affect how fast algae is killed? If a teaspoon of either a chemical herbicide, a homemade herbicide, a purchased natural herbicide, or none are added to cyanobacteria for 3 days, then the chemical herbicide will get rid of the most amount of algae. The reason for my hypothesis is because in a homemade recipe, natural and no herbicides, there's not much chemicals in them as the harsh chemical herbicides. Chemicals tend to destroy more things than natural and homemade ones. After 3 days of testing to see which herbicide got rid of the algae the fastest, I concluded and my hypothesis was incorrect. I brainstormed ideas in school and came up with the thought of whether the type of pesticide affects the amount of algae that can develop in water. It relates to chemistry and I love that subject. However, I decided it would be very difficult to test. Then I thought, does the type of herbicide affect the amount of algae that can kill? But I had no idea where to get algae in large amounts. It was fall going to winter and our pond was frozen over, and the algae may already be dead. I wanted to work with blue-green algae because I learned through my research that it caused the most problems, and our pond did not have that. I considered whether my project could measure the amount of algae left in distilled water, but then realized that the algae would still be there no matter what. Finally, I decided my project would be about how herbicides affect how fast algae is killed. From my research on this project, there were a lot of things that I learned, and some I already knew. One thing that really interested me is that the algae can get over 100 feet long. That just blows my mind because many other microorganisms cannot even get bigger than a few feet. Since September, I thought about what my project would be, developed the main essentials and the research, and worked on them through November. In December, I put all the extra items in my slides for looks. In January, I started my experiment and then finished it. In March, I uploaded all the necessary things for Salem County Science Fair and Delaware Valley Science Fair. During the testing, I set up 4 petri dishes and divided the blue-green algae between them. I set up the camera above the petri dishes and measured out the herbicides. I then put the herbicides in the algae, and the camera would take a picture every hour for 3 days. In total, it took 7 months to do everything and 4 days to run the experiment. During the research, I viewed the ways that pesticide runoff affected the river's aquatic wildlife, and much of that is cyanobacteria, or blue-green algae. It is different from other algae because it thrives in nitrogen-rich water, which can come from the runoff of farmers' fertilizers. The algae sucks all the oxygen out of the water, making plants and animals who live there suffer in the oxygen-poor water. One way to get rid of it is using herbicide. I wanted to test which method would get rid of it the best. This research could help farmers that have a lot of algae and can get rid of it in the future. Like other projects, there are sources of error. In my project, some of the errors could be the way that the chemical herbicide was stored before we got it. Herbicides must be stored at a certain temperature to be the most effective, and I borrowed a small amount of herbicide from a friend and can't be sure how it had been stored. Now, I wonder if there are any other major ways that the effect of natural and homemade herbicides could also affect the aquatic life. Maybe it would affect them even more than the algae would. Even though you are not using man-made chemicals and you're using natural herbicides, you never know the small side effects that it has on life. There's always a balancing act when you try to change the way nature looks. Thank you.